Welcome to Dr. P.C. Verma Economics YouTube economics class. In this class, we discuss different topics related to UPSC, Civil Service Examination, IAS, IES, and State Civil Services. Along with that, RBI Mains Examination, State Bank of India interview, other interview for nationalized commercial banks and other banks, private banks. Today, we are talking about the baseline model of tax competition. In previous lecture, we had studied what is tax competition. We have studied about the rise of the tax competition. And today we are discussing the baseline model of tax competition. These views are taken from Philip Jensel and Peter Schwartz. The formation of the basic mechanics of tax competition. Tax competition is usually ascribed to Jodrell and Mijkovicki. Ascribed to Jodrell and Mijkovicki discussed in 1986. The model is about two countries sharing 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 one internationally inter internationally mobile tax base Usually, due to capital, capital or less frequently less frequently cross-border shopping. Cross border shopping. Cross border shopping. As we know that Nepal border, Myanmar border, these are the example where cross border shopping is being done. The tax policy of both countries, tax policy of both countries are interdependent, are interdependent. Interdependent. One country's tax revenue one country one country tax revenue one country tax revenue depends on the other country's tax rate, on the other country tax rate, other country tax rate. For example, high taxes in country A. For example, high taxes in country A. High taxes in country A swell country B is revenue. Revenues by pushing pushing a larger share of the mobile tax base towards towards B towards B is low taxes in A. Depress B is revenue by poaching by poaching tax base from B. The tax policy of both countries are interdependent. One country's tax revenue depends on the other country's tax rate. For example, high taxes in country A swell country's beige revenue by pushing a large share of the mobile tax base towards beige, low taxes. In A, depress beige revenue by poaching tax base from B. The model predicts the model predicts this interdependency interdependence interdependency to trigger a race to the bottom. Race to the bottom in taxation. As each country, as each country tries to attract tries to try to attract mobile tax base from the other. In equilibrium, in equilibrium, tax rates are tax rates equilibrium tax rates are lower in both countries. In both countries, then they would they would be otherwise, they would be they would otherwise resulting resulting in a suboptimal suboptimally low supply of tax financed public goods. In equilibrium, tax rates are lower in both countries than they would be otherwise, resulting in a suboptimally low supply of tax-financed public goods. The baseline model has been extended has been extended in various ways. Various in various ways. We highlight to be highlight to the first concern, country size. First concerns country size. The first concern country size. The first concerns countryside. As various economists, as various economists such as Bukovetsky, 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 1991, Wilson, 1991, Kanburu, 'Kanburi and King. And others have shown have shown differences shown differences differences in country size, differences country size, change the predictions, change the predictions of the baseline baseline model significantly. If competing countries are of equal size, if competing countries are of equal size, they face similar incentive, similar incentives to cut tax, to cut tax, to cut taxes and suffer and suffer equal welfare, suffer equal welfare losses in the non-cooperative, in the non non-cooperative equilibrium. Cooperative equilibrium, non-cooperative equilibrium. Symmetric tax competition. This is symmetric tax competition case. In case of competing countries are of equal size. This is symmetric tax competition case in case of competing countries are of equal size. Asymmetric asymmetric tax competition. Asymmetric tax competition. If country sizes differ, however, the smaller country, the smaller country faces a stronger incentives incentive stronger incentives to cut tax rates than the larger country, than the than the larger country. And suffers and suffers less in the competitive equilibrium. Competitive equilibrium. Suffers less in competitive equilibrium. This is a case of this is a case of a symmetric tax competition. Indeed, if the difference if the difference in country size is large enough, the smaller country the smaller the smaller country the smaller country is better off better off under tax competition. Tax competition then in its absence in its in its absence, intuitively, inti, into, intuitively, this is this is this is this is because for the for the a small country, for the small country, the revenue loss the revenue loss from a tax cut, from a tax cut revenue forfeited revenue revenue forfeited from the initially a small initially a small domestic tax base domestic tax base is relatively minor compared compared with the major revenue gain from the inflow of part of the initially foreign tax base of the large country. Of the large country. Hence, in equilibrium, the small state small state will undercut will will undercut the rate of the large state and attract a disproportionately this pro disproportionately large share large share of the internationally mobile tax base of the internationally internationally mobile tax base there there is an advantage. There is an advantage of the smallness in tax competition. In tax in tax competition. Is an advantage of the smallest in tax competition as said by Wilson. The second extension concerns domestic constraints. The second extension concerns domestic constraint. The second extension concerns domestic constraints. Domestic constraints. The second extension concerns domestic constraint. Domestic constraints. While the baseline model while the baseline model assumes various political political scientists scientists have noted that real world real world governments governments are are subject to institutional restriction to insti- institutional restrictions institutional restrictions while the baseline model assumes various political scientists have noted that real world governments are subject to institutional restrictions institutional restrictions and countervailing pressures. Countervailing pressures which prevent which prevent or or delay adjustment delay delay adjust delay adjustment to competitive pressures to competitive competitive pressures Hollerberg and Bessinger and Bessinger 1998 and Hayes 2009 have have noted that real world governments are subject to institutional restrictions, insti- institutional institutional restrictions. Subject to institutional institutional restrictions. Institutional restrictions. Institutional restrictions refer mostly to the number mostly to the number and ideo ideological range of veto players involved involved in making tax policy in in making tax policy. Gan, Gan, Gof, Gan Gof, 2000. Says that real world governments are subject to countervailing pressures, counter countervailing pressures, which prevent or delay adjustment to competitive pressure, which prevent or delay adjust adjustment to competitive pressures, to compare competitive pressures. countervailing pressures include budget rigidity, budget rigidities, inefficiencies, inefficiency in inefficiency inefficiencies associated with with taxes on immobile factors, taxes on immobile immobile factors. Number three, mobile factors. Number three, norms. Norms of equity, norms of equity and fairness, which makes tax cut, which make tax cut, tax cuts on which make the tax cut on the mobile factors, on the tax cut on the mobile, mobile, factors, external factors, difficult, incorporating, incorporating these constant, these constants into the baseline model miti- mitigates the mitigates the competition, mitigates the competitive, mitigates the competi- competitive downward downward pressure on tax rates, on tax rates and and intro introduces new asymmetries, new new asymmetrics, so, new asymmetries symmet- symmetries new symmetries countries with lower level with lower level with lower levels of domestic domestic constraint domestic constraints are better able to compete compete for for inter for internationally mobile tax base than countries countries with a strong with a strong domestic domestic constraints cons constraints and and thus will have will have will have lower lower tax rates lower tax rates in equilibrium equilibrium countries countries with lower level of domestic constraints are better able to compete for internationally mobile tax base internationally mobile tax base Incorporating these constraints into the baseline, model mitigates the competitive downward pressure on tax rates and introduces new asymmetries. Countries with lower levels of domestic constraint are better able to compete for internationally mobile tax base than countries with a strong domestic constraints and thus will have lower tax rates in equilibrium. Thus, we come to the conclusion that our topic is related to the baseline model of tax competition. We have been reading and discussing tax competition. Today, this is third lecture that is related to the baseline model of tax competition. Baseline model was invented by Jodrov and Miskovsky in 1986. The model is about two countries sharing one international mobile tax base, usually capital or less frequently cross-border shopping. Tax policies of both countries are interdependent and one country's tax revenue depends upon the other country's tax rate. There are two countries, country A, country B, and it is discussed that how in equilibrium tax rates are lower in both countries than they would be otherwise, resulting in a sub-optimally low supply of tax-financed public goods. The baseline model has been extended in various ways. Here there are two ways in which baseline model is discussed in this class. First concern countryside. First concern of tax base model related to countryside. And countryside, there have been differences in countryside, change the predictions of the baseline model significantly. If competing countries are of equal size, then it will be the case of symmetric tax competition. If two nations are of the same size, then if two countries are of equal size, then they face similar incentives to cut taxes and suffer equal welfare losses in the non-cooperative equilibrium that is symmetric tax competition. Another aspect related to asymmetric tax competition. In this case, it has been discussed that if country sizes differ, however, the small country faces a stronger incentives to cut tax rates than the larger country and suffer less in competitive equilibrium in case of asymmetric tax competition. And the and the second extension concerns about domestic constraints. We all know that if we have taken two countries in example, while the baseline model assumes various political scientists have been noted that real world government are subject to institutional restrictions. These restrictions are uh, of different types. How do you explain restrictions? Institutional restrictions refer mostly to the number and the ideological range of veto players involved in making tax policy. And another is countervailing pressures. Countervailing pressures which prevent or delay adjustment to competitive pressures. Countervailing pressures include the budget rigidity, inefficiencies associated with taxes, and immobile factor, and norms of equity and fairness which make tax cut on mobile factors difficult. Incorporating these constraints into the baseline model mitigates the competitive downward pressure on tax rates and introduces a new asymmetries. Countries with lower level of domestic constraint are better able to compete for internationally mobile tax base than countries with a strong domestic constraint and that will have lower tax rates in equilibrium. This has been supported by Wessinger and Hollerberg in 2004. Plumper. This view is supported by Basinger, and Hollerberg. Hollerberg in 2004 and Plumper, a scholar is Plumper in 2009. Thus, we come to the conclusion that incorporating these constraints, what are the constraints? We have discussed constraints like first constraint is institutional restrictions, and second constraint is countervailing pressures. These two countervailing pressures and institutional restrictions, this will lead problem, and so it is said that countries with lower level of domestic constraint, domestic constraint are better able to compete for internationally mobile tax base than countries with a strong domestic constraint, and thus this will have lower tax rates in equilibrium. That's all. At last, you know that I am Dr. P.C. Verma, economist. I have been teaching economics for the last 50 years. I had been teaching Patna University, economics, Department of Economics, Patna College. And thereafter, I taught in Chanakya National Law University, Patna, Law Economics. Then I taught as a guest faculty in BIT Mesra, Patna campus, MBA, BBA, BBE, BBE, and BCA. Everywhere, microeconomics, macroeconomics, industrial economics, all these are being taught there. And then I taught MBA in Patna University in Darbhanga House, microeconomics, macroeconomics, and environmental economics there. I taught BBA in Arcade Business College as a department of management, as head of department. I was there, worked some time. As a guest faculty, I taught in many department other than economics. Take, for example, I taught in Science College, PG Dash. What is PG Dash? Postgraduate Diploma in Actuarial Science. Actuarial means risk. Actuarial science is a part of economics, and that is independent science nowadays on which LIC, general insurance, any insurance companies are based upon their conclusion. So I taught in Science College. I was a lecturer in Arts College, Patna College. But I taught this in Science College because this is science subject. It was taught in postgraduate department of statistics under Patna University. There, this was a professional course, a PG postgraduate diploma in actuarial science. I taught in masters in social welfare, MSW, in postgraduate department of sociology. I taught there capitalism, socialism. You might be knowing that Milton Friedman, economist, Nobel Prize winner economist, has written Capitalism and Socialism. And capitalism is related to the US economy, and socialism is related to the Chinese economy and the Russian economy. What are the contents in it? It is very interesting to read because Indian economy is a mixed economy, which has taken good features of capitalism as well as good features of socialism that turn into private sector representative of capitalism, Adani, Ambani, which is being always taught by our young Turk leader of Congress. Recently, he has spoke many things about the coming future of Indian economy if he is running the country. So this capitalism and socialism, it be a very interesting subject. Capitalism is based upon profit maximization ideal hypothesis. Socialism is related to social welfare, general welfare, equality. In capitalism, there is inequality. You all know that equality means 45-degree line in a box. That is the Lorenz curve. Lorenz curve measures inequality of income. And in any interview, if you go there, they will ask you what is the Lorenz curve. You tell the Lorenz curve is the measurement of inequality. And Indian economy is a mixed economy. Sometimes in any interview, you go inside and they will ask you that, give me in 2 words the feature of Indian economy. You will speak mixed economy. 2 words is very difficult. What to speak about 2 words about Indian economy? That is mixed economy. What is mixed economy? This is ideal mixture of capitalism and socialism both. Some factories are under private sector, some factories are government sector. Leaning towards more and more public sector, that was the model of Nehruvian era, Indira era, Rajiv era of development of Indian economy. There was a mixed economy, but there was a leaning towards public sector. And you know that more than 180 public sector enterprises are running at that time, and 100 public sector were always in loss. In spite of that, there are many which are given certificate of very good public sector. And Navratna, there was a category of Navratna, but gradually 9 number is completed. Then again Navratna was selected in different period during the period of Srimati Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi. Then it was the Navratna, but in that the number of Navratna increased. There was a mini Ratna, those who are not competing for Navratna but some good potential in it. And likewise, 100 you will read in Indian economy books, about 100 industries were always in loss. But rest are having so much profit that if totally you will see it was in profit. Then came 1991. 1991 is a great divide in Indian economy. And it is known as economic reform, new industrial policy of 1991. And in that case, it was LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization was implemented. Most of the restrictions like permit system, quota raj is removed. There is freedom given to the industry, and a new era started. But we could not run fastly because that time government run by Mrs. Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi, especially Indira Gandhi period, were supported by other party. There was no full majority. As today, Mr. Modi has no full majority by BJP. They is supported by other 2 parties. Likewise at that time. And those were communist party. So they are not in favor of privatization. And therefore in the last hour, they remain in the power. They enjoyed power 4 years. But last 5th year, they shifted from Congress and become independent. This was the condition of Communist Party of different banner. So what I want to communicate to you, that tax competition is most important topic nowadays in a free economy, in a less barrier, and then a tax minimum low tax regime has come in every country which are following the principle of economic reform to solve the problem. So this you read this video, and 2 videos already I have uploaded on this tax competition. It is interesting thing, and develop it, read it, and discuss among your friends. Suggest friends to read this channel, which is free of cost. Material is given forward to you. You cook it and shape it for your own purpose. If you are appearing in UPSC, your standard will be so high. If you appear in IES, standard will be high. But if you are appearing in a state civil services, you can be using some medium standard, and material may be cut and precise way you can write it. But you must have a diary of all this terminology for which you can speak 5 lines, 10 lines about the tax competition or tax avoidance or taxable capacity, any topic which I discuss gradually. Thank you for reading my video. Like it, share it,